Hi, this is Tom, and this is the next part of lesson 14. And in this, we're going to find the mean of a frequency distribution. So I'm going to give you one. We say we have our classes. We'll do class boundaries. And frequency. And here are the classes we're going to take a look at. So our first class is 0.5 to 2.5, 2.5 to 4.5, 4.5 to 6.5, 6.5 to 8.5, and finally our last class will be 8.5 through 10.5. And our frequencies look like this. It's 3, 3, 4, 0, and 1. Now, here's how we do this. Once data has been put into a frequency distribution, it loses its individual identity. If we look up above here, see, here I knew all of the exact values. But once those values have been put into a frequency distribution, they lose that identity. So what we need to do is we need to come up with a means, no pun intended, but we need to come with a means of identifying or classifying values. And here's what we do. The easiest way to estimate what those values might be is we use the midpoint. We use the midpoint of each class. And sometimes you'll see it written as x with a subscript of m for midpoint. Okay, so here, let's calculate this. Remember the midpoint is we add the two numbers, so we go 0.5 plus the 2.5, we add them together, and then we divide by 2. So if I take 0.5, I add 2.5, that's 3. I divide it by 2 to get 1.5. And then we're going to keep doing this, and so my next one would be 2.5 plus 4.5. I divide that by 2, that's going to be 3.5. My next one, I would take the 4.5 plus the 6.5, divide those by 2, that's going to be 11 divided by 2 for 5.5. My next one, I would take the 6.5, add it to the 8.5, divided by 2. Well, let's see, 6.5 plus 8.5, that's 15. Half of that would be 7.5. And continuing this pattern, our last one is 8.5 plus 10.5 divided by 2, and that's going to be 19 for final midpoint of 9.5. Now, so notice though, now let's take a look at what this means. So for example, if we look at this first class, I'm representing every value in there as the 1.5 that we have over here. Every value is a 1.5. But you can't just add up the midpoints nor the frequency, because what this problem really says is that the first class has 3 1.5s. That's what the frequency distribution is telling us. 3, oops, not the, there's 3 1.5s in this class. The next class has 3 3.5s. The next class has 4 5.5s. Now, for a moment, what I could do is then I could write this as x bar equals. Well, I could write out 1.5 plus 1.5 plus 1.5, and I could do that all the way through, but that's a lot of data to have to write. So instead of taking this route, let's remember that this 1.5 plus 1.5 plus 1.5 is the same as 1.5 times 3. And so look at what happened. Then, in other words, I take this number here, the midpoint, and I multiply it by the frequency, and then I add. So doing that, let's take a fresh crack at the mean. What we're going to do is we're going to write it this way. X bar equals, I take the data, 1.5, and I multiply it by its frequency of 3 plus. The next datas are 3.5s, and they have a frequency of 3 plus. My next data are the 5.5s, and they have a frequency of 4 plus. My next data are the 7.5s, and they're the data we have 0 plus. Our last set of data values are the 9.5s, and we have 1 of those. So add all of this up, and then we want to divide by the total number of data. Well, to find that, notice what we need to do is we need to add the frequency column. We need to come over, we need to take a look at this column right there and add those values. So let's do that now. So if I take 3 and 3, that's 6, plus 4 is 10, plus 0 is still 10, plus 1 more, I come up with 11. So my total n, this is n, so I divide by 11. So if we do that, we come up with 4.5 plus 10.5 plus 22 plus a 0 plus a 9.5, and divide all of that up by 11. And when I add these up, that's 15 plus 22, that's 46.5. Divide that by 11, and I've actually done that on the calculator, and I came up with, now let's take a quick moment, and let's go find Good Grapher. I like Good Grapher. Let's see what Good Grapher tells us. It says that if we take 46.5 and we divide it by 11, we come up with, whoa, look at that, 4.2, and then it starts repeating, 27, 27, 27, 27. So I'm going to bring that back, and let's take a look. So this becomes 4.2, and then we have this 27 that just goes on forever. Now, remember, our data, it's not actually, we estimated it here using half units, but since these are our boundaries over here, really our data is in whole numbers. So we should round this to the nearest tenth. And so my final answer would be to write x bar is 4.2. And that is how you find the mean of a frequency distribution. This is Tom. Thanks for watching.